Welcome into another live draft coverage, back-to-back nights here on the FFPC. Last night we covered the Fantasy Pros Championship. Tonight, the Best Ball Tournament. Joining me as always is Dave Terp. Terp drafting with Theo Gremminger. Been on the show before. I think you were here for the hard way. The people wanted more. We're excited for this draft. You guys are drafting out of the 8th spot today in this FFPC Best Ball Tournament. How you guys doing?
I'm feeling great. I love drafting with Terp. I love what you guys do here on this show. Last time, you guys got me in my tilting moment. But hey, guys, my Quentin Johnston pick at the time was like seeing the future because he shot up ADP. So
I agree with you. I'm all aboard that train, and I wasn't on board until pretty much then.
So Terp, we're kind of on the same page here. We talked about going running back or wide receiver here. The 8's a good spot, and I'm kind of like, could go either way. I'm interested to see what's going on here. This is team 6, I believe, is Billy Muzio and Dave Hubbard.
And last time we were in a draft with them, they got real wacky. So, I mean, anything's possible with those two.
The 2 double quarterback in like the first 4 rounds, I heard.
Yeah, and double tight ends, first 4 picks.
Well, when you draft often, you want to cover all your bases. And Billy and Dave also know how to cover up pretty much any build in the back half. So 100%. they're super sharp. But they're taking their time on this OTC decision. I think they're maybe thinking about Tyreek Hill here. I'm not sure though.
It sounds like an auto pick's coming. They're probably not even paying attention. First round.
Yeah, there you go, Tyreek Hill. Okay.
Waited that whole time for that.
Maybe they're messing with you guys.
You never know.
So right now we're OTC here, Terp. We could go Bijan Robinson, or we could pivot down to a wide receiver. I like the idea of Stephon Diggs here. I don't mind getting unique and cute and maybe grabbing like an Amon-Ra St. Brown or an AJ Brown for you Philly guys. Where you at, Terp?
I would be cute and go with St. Brown or AJ Brown. I'm fine with either one.
So why don't we go slightly unique with Amon-Ra St. Brown, because he's going to be a much easier guy to stack.
I'm with it.
Yeah, because I like a lot of the lines where the lines are going, and I think Goff is a quarterback that we can obviously get, and I think I'm open to both Lions running backs. I think they're both kind of interesting values, and obviously Jameson Williams, Sam LaPorta. They're just an easy team to stack, and I think they're going to be one of the league's best offenses.
All aboard the Lions train. Great week 1, too. I mean, that game in Thursday night against the Chiefs, that free look you're going to get for most people, and then also if you're drafting like both of us will be after the draft, that could be a wild, wild game. I know we say it every year, but this year, I mean, there's so many guys.
Gibbs, yeah.
I mean, you have all those Kansas City guys. If Kadarius Toney is what people think he might be, goes off for a 20 burger, he's going to move up. He might get into the second round. All those other fringe KC receivers who you don't even know if they're draftable could move up. Could Travis Kelce fall if he doesn't have a great game? I mean, that game's wide open.
Sky Moore up to like the 6th round.
Yeah. Marvin Jones, if he has like a 16, 18-point game, will get pushed all the way up to the 10th round. It could be an interesting game.
You always see like those wild overreactions. I don't know. It's you don't want to get too crazy. I like drafting the next morning at 10 in the morning. Like I feel like everybody's kind of chilled out. People they tilt. It's so tilting when you're like in that, the enthusiasm, everybody going nuts. Those drafts right after the opener, they're fun.
Some of them boards the last couple of years have been wild. Not really last year because there really wasn't anything too crazy, but the year before, I remember when Eckler was questionable to start the season. He fell to like 3rd round in some drafts, and he was getting drafted in like the 1st round in some of the drafts. So it's crazy. Those boards out there. That's why I like drafting after the game, because it gives you a whole different dynamic to plan for. And if you're prepared, you can really take advantage of guys who are falling and obviously, guys who move up just a little bit.
It was 2 years ago. It was the Amari Cooper draft. Remember, correct. Amari Cooper shot up to like 6th overall and then let everybody down. Of course.
That game was just a shootout back and forth. Tampa Bay, I mean, Dak, all those guys just moved up a ton. And Amari Cooper was just you drafted Amari Cooper in the top 10 picks, you were pretty much drawn dead after week 1.
Me and Barty talked about it last night. The pedestal for the Thursday Night Mover, 2018 Kareem Hunt, I think, 2017 Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's rookie year against the Patriots, that has to be the epitome of the Thursday night post that game, just a guy's draft stock rising up. It's a top 5 territory. I have to assume I wasn't there, but
yeah, no, he moved up to like the 101, and people were banking all those points. So wild things happen in Vegas. Like, people are already kind of tilted. Like, it's one of the best experiences ever when you're in that FFPC live draft room. There's so many tables of drafts. You see so many people, it's unbelievably fun. But I think sometimes people get there and like they kind of galaxy brain it, and
they get caught up in the moment.
Yeah, they want a unique build, and they want to reach, and they want to pass on guys because they're nervous. So
we can go all the way back to like the Peyton Manning days when he was going number 1 overall in some drafts when he had that 49, 50-point game, threw all those touchdowns. I think it was 6 touchdowns he threw. I mean, then you see crazy stuff. And if guys who are just out there for the experience, like not the trained professionals, I guess you could call some of us, but guys who are just out there for the first time are going to be like, wow, I can get 50 points week 1. And they're going to make a decision that's going to cost them their whole season.
100% agree with you. It's a very short-sighted thinking. Okay, so you see a Bijan, Tony Pollard. You're starting to see that combination more frequently, especially with people worried about Saquon Barkley. And he's going to get obviously pushed down in this draft a little bit. So we're 100%. Creeping up here. I would like a Garrett Wilson here, Terp. Where are you at?
I'm with you. You don't have to ask me. He's my guy. I'm all aboard the Garrett Wilson train if he makes it.
Yeah, I'm good with that one.
Either one of the two is good for me. I mean, I don't have any of the third guy, but we can talk about him. It's not really going to change much.
So there goes Garrett Wilson. Where are you at? Where are you at here? I mean, we could consider pushing up Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I don't have any Devontae Adams, so if you want to go there, I'm okay going there. If you want to get a little way different and push up Mark Andrews, I don't have a problem with that.
I just feel like we might not have an edge with the Andrews. I think that the alternative would be, I think you're better off going Devontae Adams. I'd be okay going Jalen Waddle as well. But you want some Adams. I think it's structurally fine to go Devontae Adams here.
Yeah, let's go Adams because he's not somebody that I'll draft much.
Sure.
I just feel like it'll be a different type of build. I don't know how many St. Brown Adams teams you'll find. Most of those guys are going kind of similar, but not together. You're going to see a lot of Lamb, St. Brown teams for the correlation, obviously, in week 17 mixed in, and then obviously all these running backs at the end. So I like doing these drafts. We talk about it. It's like so certain guys I won't draft by myself, and you have like biases, obviously, that you just don't want to. But these drafts open up a little bit more of guys that trying to get a different build, something that's going to look a little different. So I'm definitely on board with it.
I'm okay being considered the guy that makes you want to draft Bijan, though, Terp, because I'm all about Bijan.
I talked to Aidan before the show, and I said if there was ever going to be a time, it's going to be the time tonight because I'm on board with you with the JSN bet with Billy, but I am not on board with the Bijan love. So
well, yeah, I get it. I'm actually like I have like people like there's a lot of like Bijan haters out there now that are like coming at me. They're like, you're not worried about Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson.
Like,
and I'm like, no, I'm not. Nah. I'm not worried about that.
Yourself.
Yeah, like what are we talking about here? So I don't know. I think the Bijan is going to kind of settle in. I think the steam is kind of chilled out a little bit. You'll see some unique people trying to push him up in like the top 3, but I think where we're seeing him makes sense though, Terp, because you talk about like I love Pollard. I think Pollard's great, but you need Pollard to take a big volume increase for him to like be RB1. Nick Chubb's never finished higher. Like in terms of points per game, like Nick Chubb's kind of getting drafted at his peak right now, even though I like that Browns offense. Like, where are you at on Chubb?
Huge fan of Chubb. I mean, I know he's not somebody watching your podcast and different shows that you're doing. You're not the highest on Nick Chubb. I feel like he's one of the safest, but he still has that upside that is going to, get him pushed up drafts. And I think he's going to get pushed up drafts even more to where a point where if you're getting in the mid-second round, I'm fine with that. Maybe push him up a little bit, but he's not a first-round pick. I can't take him over. He doesn't catch the ball, and I know they keep talking about how he's going to catch the ball and all this stuff, but I don't see it. And I think they're going to add somebody that's just going to make things a little, more difficult. I think they're going to throw the ball more, and I just don't think he's going to be a part of it. But he's such a safe from the rushing perspective. I mean, he's safe for 120 and a touchdown almost every game.
I think that you kind of nailed it. Like And I don't think safe is like a negative word. Like usually when you say safe, it's like the guys you want to avoid. But from the running back spot, he structurally makes sense. I just feel like with the steam at wide receiver, if you take Nick Chubb, especially like this drafter did where they go bang bang running backs, even in a best ball format, I still feel like I'm playing catch up at the wide receiver spot. And like Chubb, you're asking him to have his best season ever as a year 6 guy. And last year we had a year 6 guy finish as RB1 overall in Eckler. Like it obviously could happen. We've seen it. Jamal Charles finished as RB1 overall in his 6th season. But it's kind of like if I'm taking a guy 13th overall, he better be top of his position in the range of outcomes. Like with us, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown can finish as wide receiver 1 overall.
100%. Devontae Adams could too. I mean, it's not something we both think is going to happen, but it's definitely within the range of outcomes. Guys, give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Sure. Like, Devontae Adams is going to have smash games. Even if the Raiders offense struggles, he's the kind of guy that gets in those incredible matchups and, he can still have smash games. So making sure Terp's good to put this pick in because I don't have the FFPC board open, Terp. I'm going blind here.
How many do you have it open? You didn't get the...
I did. I am going to open it now. This was
open it. No blindness.
Yeah. No blindness.
I had a question for you guys on your Devontae Adams pick. Devontae Adams finished as wide receiver 3 last year in the FFPC scoring. He's going to wide receiver 10. You guys got him at wide receiver 10. Is that is there a little bit of value? Is Jimmy Garoppolo really that much of a drop off compared to Derek Carr?
For me, I think that there's a chance that Derek Carr, with Jimmy Garoppolo, that there's injury concerns that like kind of worry me a little bit thinking about what's behind them. But I think you nailed it. I think like he's insulated by where he's going. Every single year he's crushed. And last year he had a fantastic season his first year there. And Darren Waller moved on. So he also did that where it's like the perfect storm season for Josh Jacobs where everything was going right with the running back position. So 100%. I think Adams could end up making people look foolish. And I think that even if you're anti Devontae Adams, I think like Terp said, like you have to be open to drafting him at ADP just based on like, if you're going to enter multiple entries into a tournament like this, you don't want to have no Devontae Adams. Okay. We're creeping up here, Terp. I'm getting in here. Where are you at here? Who are you thinking?
I mean, the Breece Hall news should push him. People are going to get scared of that pup. So he's not somebody I would push here.
I mean, I'll throw out Hawkinson. I'll throw out
Hawkinson was who I was going to say.
I'll throw out
I'm not a DK Metcalf guy.
I'll throw out Jahmyr Gibbs because we have the Detroit correlation. And I don't think that's the worst thing to have a Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think we'd get off to a very quick start with those two.
I agree. I'm good with that.
And there goes Hawk anyway. So why don't we? I'm good with Jahmyr Gibbs. I agree with you. I don't think we get an edge with DK Metcalf. If you wanted to push up one of the quarterbacks like non-correlated, let's go Jahmyr Gibbs. Here we go.
I'm quick and to the point.
Listen, we're not messing around today.
A lot of things that we agree on. So I also like doing shows with people like I agree with a lot. There's obviously some things that we won't agree on, like obviously Bijan Robinson, but like it's the same brain wave that it's like, all right, we know who we kind of want. There's a couple guys who want to be a little different. Devontae Adams, for example, but the St. Brown thing I totally agree with. I mean, his range of outcomes is wide receiver 1. So Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, like we said, if he goes nuts, he could be. Let's just say he puts up 30. He could easily go top 3 overall. Definitely number 1 running back taken.
And also, I think the great thing about the best ball format is with a back who's going to catch this many passes in Gibbs, you don't have to worry about it. You just sit back and you bank those points. I mean, I think 90 catches is definitely in the range of outcomes. So coming up around here, the 405 should be good. I think we're looking still at the wide receiver spot. And if one of these elite quarterbacks is there, I don't mind taking them either, Terp. Is there anybody there? Yeah. Is there anybody that kind of stands out to you?
I mean, Lamar would be the guy for me.
I just put him in the queue.
Yeah, so did I. So we probably did it at the same time. He'd be the guy that stood there for me. Outside of that, like Burrow, I feel like we'd be behind the 8 ball with the Higgins and Chase. Like if we had Burrow and he makes it, like who we stacking him with. Obviously, to win these, I feel like I know the guy last year didn't have any monster stacks, but I feel like to accumulate the most points, we have the correlation, with Brown and Gibbs. I feel like Burrow would be the wrong pick, personally, even though I think he's going to be an absolute monster. So it's just tough because I'm a big stack. Lamar Jackson just goes, so there eliminates that idea. He's just getting pushed up more. I think by the time we get pushed in like late time in Vegas, he's going to be ahead of Josh Allen.
So yeah, I think that like all the drum beats in Baltimore are super strong for that offense and the pace of play, and I think I like the weapons as well. Everything about Lamar Jackson is like creeping up these boards, every single day. Underdog, FFPC. I think that this is a weird like range of the draft. I'm with you. Like DK Metcalf last year went over 140 targets, but that's like a rare thing for him. The 2 seasons before, he had double-digit touchdowns. And we still didn't, even though those 3 things happened, we still didn't see like that insane game. I think people are kind of thinking about that playoff game a little bit too much.
I agree. I'm surprised he's going as high as he is. Obviously, he's extremely talented. But there's this Geno Smith. Are you sure he's going to be the same guy he was last year? You hope so, but are you sure? They added JSN. They still have Tyler Lockett. There's obviously a big worry. I mean, is there enough balls to go around? Is that offense really going to keep humming? I think it is. But, I mean, it's still Geno Smith. And, I mean, yeah, he had that big year last year, but I don't know.
So, I don't mind Jerry Jeudy here. I don't mind Christian Watson here. Oh, there goes Christian Watson. I think that the running backs are kind of unexciting. I don't hate Travis Etienne in this range. I worry about him a little bit, but in best ball, I think it kind of structurally makes some sense for us. And then I'll also for consideration, I'll put Kittle up there just as, I don't know, the running backs just don't excite me that much in this range, especially in best ball. I feel like it's a lot of like purgatory type guys like Harris, Mixon, Jones, Walker for that matter. I feel like none of them give us an edge. I think Kittle kind of structurally gives us a little bit of an edge.
100% agree with you. There's no run. I mean, I like ETN, but I feel like based off the structure that we have so far, it's just extremely probably not the right pick.
I think we're going to feel like we're kind of pot committed to wide receiver in the 5th round as well, because it's going to start drying up.
I agree.
Kittle kind of makes sense for us. And it allows us to take less tight ends and not have to feel like we have to make up for it. We already have the opportunity to kind of grab LaPorta with our stack. So I don't know. I think if Kittle's here, we take him. We have 3 guys OTC. Now Joe Burrow goes off. So we're pretty good.
Question for you real quick. You have Mojo up?
Of course.
What's the latest DK Metcalf has gone in one of these?
The latest DK Metcalf has gone in the last.
I don't think I've seen him outside of the 3rd round.
42.
Yep, 4.6.
4.6. So we would be slightly near the bottom.
Right.
I'll take him. I mean, if DK's here, we take him. No question. If DK goes right here to Papa Doc's, then I think we're between Jeudy and Kittle. And that's a conversation.
The only reason I'm DK Kittle too. I think Jeudy, I love Jeudy this year, but I feel like I agree with everything you said on Kittle. My only thing with DK is, how do you take DeAndre Hopkins over him?
So we have a kind of a champagne problem here, Terp, where we can go DK Metcalf or we can go George Kittle. The idea of having Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, and DK Metcalf together at the wide receiver position is pretty freaking scary if they're all healthy in the money weeks.
I agree. I don't think we can pass that up. I mean,
what is Kittle's low? Kittle's low is 55. So let's take DK. I think it's almost a no-brainer here.
I mean, he's not somebody I would ever consider. Definitely not in the 3rd round, but to get him there, I mean, sometimes you just try to not to be too cute. I mean, the guy's there. He shouldn't be there. I've seen him get drafted in the 2nd round of some of these. And I'm going to guess there's not going to be many St. Brown, Adams, Metcalf teams.
And now I feel like we're pretty we're pretty neutral. We can kind of go in many different directions here in the 5th and 6th rounds because I
agree. There'll still be plenty of tight end options. We still might have a Pitts, Darren Waller option.
When you guys have been hitting these drafts, what are your in terms of structure? What has been your favorite number of wide receivers that you end up with? Forget like which wide receivers, but just structurally, is there are you a 7 wide receivers, 8 wide receivers? or you are comfortable going a little,
Aidan,
going
what
either
have you
way?
noticed?
I don't know the exact number. The most popular thing that I've seen, at least, and in terms it's also for Terp, I can't speak for you, but the teams I like most are they hammer receivers early. You're seeing in the first 7 rounds, you're seeing about 5 receivers, and then they always hit a couple of late sleepers. So I would say if you're looking at 7, I'd say, and it's usually about 5 in the first 7 rounds, and then they have 2 kind of slots reserved in those double-digit rounds for upside plays, lottery tickets. So I would say 7 is the number because then they hammer the positions that they kind of passed on early.
Unless you go with a wacky build, I totally agree. I mean, if you start off, let's say Tony Pollard, Bijan Robinson, then I think you might get up to the 8-9 range just to just try to get the bulk of the receivers instead of actually getting some of the top ones at the beginning. So to me, it's 7-8 with this build, especially if we take one coming up. If none of the tight ends that we were talking about fall, I think it's kind of a slam dunk to take another one because they're just going to start drying up, and we know I don't want to be drafting Juju at all in any way.
I've already done that on this. I don't want to have my reputation.
I don't. Double Juju. I mean, I don't know if you're going to be invited back on that one.
But I will say there's an interesting argument, Terp.
I'm scared now.
There's an interesting argument with leaning into an additional Raiders pass catcher to take Myers or Mayer with Adams, and you can do it uncorrelated without the quarterback. I don't mind that because I think that it's a little more consolidated than people might think.
And that division the Raiders are going to be bad. So they're going to be throwing the ball a ton. I mean, they're by far, in my opinion, the worst team in that division. I think the Broncos are going to rebound. They're going to be behind. Their defense is okay, but I mean, Mahomes, Herbert with Kellen Moore, they're going to put up a ton of points. So they're going to be throwing the ball a ton.
So I don't mind leaning into that Las Vegas structure, like uncorrelated, and just having a few of those pass catchers. So I will say I like Jacoby Myers more when I'm taking Devontae Adams, kind of like, they're like sketchy guys. And I'll say Michael Mayer has gone way, way down. And I think
understand why.
I don't know. I think people are like, him and LaPorta were like very close to one another for a while. And now LaPorta's sliding up. I'm in a slow main event. And LaPorta, I think, went like the 11th round. Like he's really, really going up and up. He's getting closer and closer to Kincaid as the season moves along. So, and at the same time, like Mayer, I don't know if people think there's going to be more of a split between him and Austin Hooper, but I think Mayer's like a really.
I mean, if we're worried about Austin Hooper, I mean, that's not a good sign for the rookie in any sense.
I think Michael Myers is going to be one of the best picks of the NFL draft. Beyond fantasy.
He's one of my highest owned best ball guys. I was pounding him early when he was pretty much free. And he's even getting more. He's even discounted even more. As a 3rd tight end and a 3 tight end build, it just makes too much sense.
Did you see they have the where the picture where all the rookies get together and they like, it's like maybe like 30-40 rookies. They get together for like the symposium. Yep. Yeah, the showcase. And it's like Kincaid and LaPorta, and then they show Michael Mayer, and Michael Mayer looks like a fucking brick shit house.
Great blocker, so he's going to be on the field a ton.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a ton of potential in the kid. I mean, you just got to worry about who's going to play quarterback. Can Garoppolo get the job done? And if he doesn't, I mean, we're talking about some disaster.
Mayer could be like Freiermuth his rookie season, where you don't get a lot early on, but then as the season progresses, he just kind of dusts Hooper, leaves him behind in like week 7 or 8, and then that's his tight end spot, and you get top 15 weeks to end the year. So I'm kind of into him at ADP for sure.
If I could go back real quick, I wanted to ask your guys' opinion on really 3 players, all different kind of circumstances. I want to first ask, Josh Jacobs goes at the 208 today. Saquon goes at the 210. What is your guys' both thoughts on their possible holdouts? I'm of the opinion I think Jacobs is going to play. Saquon, just his attitude and everything he's saying and just the whole situation, it leads me to believe I think he has a way higher chance of actually holding out into the season compared to Josh Jacobs. So I wanted to see your guys' thoughts. And are you buying the dip? Are you out on them?
I just traded for Saquon today in a 1250 Dynasty FFPC league. I think that it's like the way that the fines are set up, you're going to lose so much money if you hold out these days. Like these guys are, it's a bad deal for running backs, but at the end of the day, it's like if he holds out for 1 week of the season to make a statement, I think like then he'd lose so much money. I do think that there is a argument that the Jacobs and the Barkleys, the guys who feel incredibly spurned by their teams and their lack of guaranteed money and their lack of long-term contract, I think there's a argument that maybe they're a little less likely to play hurt. Maybe they're a little less likely to play towards the end of the year. And if the Giants are a 500 team and they get lapped by your Eagles and the Cowboys and they're out of it, then maybe Saquon's a little less likely to help you in the fantasy playoffs. So I think that those kind of things are more likely than him like sitting out these games. I just think it's the idea of losing that much money. Just, I don't know. It doesn't seem like the correct business decision, but he certainly is upset. Giants fans are upset. It's an ugly situation.
Pretty much, they have nothing to stand on. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to really sit out the whole season. Saquon Barkley, I guess, is more of a face of the NFL. So if he's going to make a statement, but how did it work out for Le'Veon Bell? I mean, it worked out
everything he said in interviews. He did all the interview today. He said, he said, "Fuck
all these tough words and all this stuff." Like, come on, man. I get it, but they're offering you $13 million. I heard a year.
But it's a difference by $3 million, so it's kind of far off.
Which is a lot of money, obviously, but he's going to be back. I mean, he's going to sign a learn time. I just don't see it. Same thing with Josh Jacobs. They said he was close. I don't see either of those guys missing much time. They might try to put their foot down and miss a couple of weeks maybe, but maybe not practice in the preseason. Not worry about that, but they'll both be back. And Saquon Barkley, personally, I hope he falls even more, because if I can get some third round Saquon Barkley, if I'm picking up top, you're going to be so different in some of these big tournaments.
Yeah. I traded Treylon Burks and James Cook for him in a big money league. So I feel like I'm kind of insulated on that.
Dynasty is a different animal. If you told some novice player, hey, I just traded Saquon Barkley for James Cook and Treylon Burks, they're like, you stupid idiot.
Yeah.
But it's just so different. Dynasties is a different animal.
100%. And guys are willing to take a little haircut to get out and have more youth and more flexibility with their rosters. So this same guy I traded with years ago, and I felt like I got him he's a known, I'll tell you off air who he is, Terp, a known Dynasty player. But a couple years he got me on, it was Garrett Wilson. I drafted a few rookie wide receivers out of that class, and I moved Garrett Wilson for DJ Moore, and we see how that one went. So hopefully I'll get him this time. So Terp, we're here. We have Darren Waller. We have Dallas Goedert. They stand out structurally as tight ends. I put Justin Herbert in the queue to give us an elite quarterback that we can kind of do some stacking with later. I don't mind that one. I don't mind going tight end either. And then Drake London and Cam Akers, if you want to go running back.
My question with Justin Herbert is, I love Justin Herbert. He's my third quarterback this year. Can we push him? Are we worried that he gets taken by 12? That's my only.
I mean, at the 605, Trevor Lawrence would kind of be like an arbitrage play to Herbert.
Yeah.
I'm okay with Waller or Goddard if you want to get our tight end out of the way here. Which one do you lean?
I lean Waller.
So let's go Waller. I like that too, and we can also potentially correlate that. Okay, so we got Darren Waller. Okay, so I'm going to put Trevor Lawrence in the queue here. I mean, Goddard will stay in the queue. If for some reason he gets there, we'd be done at tight end if we go bang bang. Though there you go. Yeah. Papa Docs takes him. So
right on cue.
It's a good pick. I like where we got Waller. I know Billy Muzio is very high on Waller as well. I mean, of all the tight ends in football, I mean, he's one of them. The only ones you'd really bet on getting 120 targets and leading his team in targets. So I'm on Waller. I think the bounce back happens. I think Dable needs him. I think he needs to bounce back big time, for his career and everything. He's the only receiver alpha in that offense. They're all a bunch of slot receivers.
They're all a bunch of average Joes. I mean, they're going to have some split weeks, but you're never going to be able to predict that. I mean, to me, Darren Waller is the big highest upside guy. He's definitely the guy that I've been drafting out of these 5 after the big 2, probably more than any other one. So, I mean, I'm extremely high on him. I think Daniel Jones, I mean, they went and got him. I trust Brian Dable. There goes Justin Herbert. Never saw that one coming. Don't understand that at all.
Well, we're I feel like at this point it's Trevor Lawrence or the best player available, and I don't mind going back to the wide receiver because I like this tier. I'll throw Ayuk in there as a high upside guy as our wide receiver 4. Running back wise, Cam Akers stands out the most to me. I like him more than Madison, and I like him more than Damian Pierce. I like him more than Rashad White. So
here's going to go Kirk and Trevor Lawrence. Makes too much sense.
It makes too much sense, is right.
Terp, this is the most open you've been about talking about your guys on these streams, and God knows how long.
I mean, everybody knows Christian Watson. I mean, I would draft him in every draft.
Not even just Watson, just you're saying the names.
I mean, I don't.
If
somebody wants to, like at the end of the day, I mean, I've said it a million times on these shows. If somebody wants to snake Justin Herbert with Lamar Jackson unstacked in these things, what am I going to do?
So, Terp, I talked apparently about my FFPC main event team. I'm on all these pods now, so it's like I'm talking constantly. And like I talked about how I have drafted Justin Herbert, and I was thinking about, taking Gerald Everett later in the draft, and I get snaked on him in this slow main. And I was like to Andrew Schellenberg, I'm like, yeah, you can't. I believe this guy snaked him. And he's like, Theo, you just said you were going to take him, and this guy's definitely trying to block you. So I don't know, Terp. I feel like if somebody tries to take your guys, it naturally creates value somewhere else. So
I'm flattered by it. It's kind of annoying. I just did one of these the other day, and Herbert was just lined up. I had Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy. It just made too much sense. And he took same type of situation. He had Patrick Mahomes and took Justin Herbert. Never saw it coming. In certain drafts, it's like, what are you going to do? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
We're in pretty good shape with this pick coming up. I'm not sure if Trevor Lawrence gives us as much of an edge. Like, I'm okay going Trevor Lawrence here, but I also kind of like Akers in London. I think those two guys stand out to me.
To me, it's a clear Akers if he makes it.
Okay, so I'm fine with that. I do like London though. I think London is going to have some big weeks. I'm not like in love with him, but I think with his talent profile and the lack of pass catchers. Okay, so there goes Akers. So now, Terp, do you want to take Trevor Lawrence here, or are you completely off of London? Is this what
I would take Drake London.
Okay, so I want to take Drake London as well. So let's take Drake London, and we get our wide receiver 4. And I think like this is great value for him. Like, he's an alpha. We have concerns about the offense, but at the end of the day, he's one of the best weapons in Atlanta.
That target tree should be consolidated. I mean, it's just my fear at that team has nothing to do with. I mean, obviously, I'm not a Desmond Ridder guy. I don't think many people are. They think he's going to be better than Mariota. Anybody could be better than Mariota. It's just, do you trust Arthur Smith? And that's where I think one of these guys is going to just smash. The question is, which one? I think the other guys are going to be okay. I think one of them probably will disappoint based off where they're being drafted, but I think one's going to smash. And if I had to pick one, I've said it a couple times, it's been Drake London. So,
yeah, and even if he doesn't smash, I think where he's going here, I think he's kind of insulated from like crushing your builds, because I think his downside to me is like wide receiver 3 land, and his upside is probably like wide receiver 15. I just don't think there's a whole lot of guys like him. We saw him play very well at the end of the season. I mean, he's an alpha, and he's a beast, and he's also flashed as a very, very young player. Like, he was playing in the league as one of the younger wide receivers in football last year, and metrics wise, he was all about it. So I like him there. I like who you put in the queue too, Terp.
Yeah, definitely. Probably, if I was going to push somebody up, it would be him. If he falls back, he should fall back. I think he should. I'll just throw some other guys in there for fun.
People in the chat are saying, excuse me, your guys' team name this year pushed JSN up to the 601.
That was hitting up Billy Muzio. I feel like
that was 100% hitting up Billy Muzio. Had nothing to do with us taking him. Obviously, we both like him. Obviously, I hope Theo wins that bet, because I just think JSN's a monster. I see a path that JSN could lead the team in fantasy points over DK Metcalf. I mean, I hope that's not the case based off this team we just drafted, but there's a world. Big fan of JSN, was not happy with his landing spot, but still extremely talented player. And if he puts it all together and stays healthy, I mean, he could be the new alpha on that team.
He's a stud. He's a stud. And Billy, I make some wonderful points about like how much that Pete Carroll likes to run 12, and how they like to use the running backs. But I think at the end of the day, in the NFC right now, you're chasing your Philadelphia Eagles, chasing the Cowboys. I mean, you're not going to be able to and the 49ers. It's these big time offenses.
And everybody else is pretty much the same. Lions, Seattle.
And it's like the wide open offense and trying to get the ball to your playmakers really matters. And I don't think you take Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round when you consider yourself a Super Bowl contender, unless you plan on using him. I think he's a stud. And I think you're right. I think the whole argument has been between him and Lockett, but he's a threat to DK Metcalf. Just like the guys at Ohio State was able to siphon targets no matter who was playing next to him. He was always a big part of the game plan. I don't see why that he's going to come out and out the gate slow in the NFL. I think he's a stud.
It's been going up to 708.
Agree.
708 goes up to 601 today. Some interesting ADPs. Amari Cooper went around early. Calvin Ridley goes around early, but Amon, just all the way back to your guys' first pick, that's just by a pick, but that's the earliest Amon-Ra St. Brown has gone in this format over the last roughly week. So we've seen certainly Christian Watson goes nearly around.
Where's the latest that Drake London has fell?
Drake London.
6'7".
So right around.
So I like the three guys in our queue structurally, and I don't think there's a whole lot of reason to kind of push everybody else up. So I'm okay with one of those two. I think that I'm trying to see if there's another edge here. I think those are the two, Terp.
Yeah, I don't see I thought about Njoku if Watson we could push, but he obviously got taken. See if get a little different there, but that's not going to happen. So
we're pretty open here. Dotson or Connor. I kind of lean Connor because I do think Connor is going to get an exceptional amount of volume to start the season,
especially early on. I mean,
yeah.
Will he get there at the end? We'll worry about that at the end, but I feel like Connor makes the most sense for this structure.
Yeah, let's take Connor.
I wanted to ask, the draft is flying by. Connor's kind of similar. I was expecting a boost at some point between James Conner and Cam Akers, that we would start to see them rise as neither of those teams are going to add presumably anyone to that backfield. I really wanted to talk about Akers. I think it applies to Connor too. Are you surprised that they haven't been pushed up a lot? Like Cam Akers, his competition is 6th-round pick Zach Evans. There's nothing there. And James Conner might be one of the few pieces. Granted, it's not going to be a great offense, but they've proven that they give him a workload when he's healthy. I like both of those values. He goes Cam Akers at the 604, James Conner at the 708 to you guys. I just want to hear your thoughts on both of those players.
I feel like no one wants to draft Arizona Cardinals. You see it in FFPC. You see it on Underdog where they're all getting pushed way, way, way down.
I don't understand it.
I mean, they have the lowest Vegas total, and Connor has missed time, but he ended the season so well. And his points per game averages, if you simply look at what he averages points per game over the last 5 years, he's consistently up there. And also the receiving work was strong last year. So I think people have a lot of fears about that offense, and it's become kind of let's fade everybody in Arizona. Usually when this sort of thing happens, Terp, like last year, people were fading Seattle, people were fading Cleveland. Nick Chubb went exceptionally low in certain high-stakes drafts. And Amari Cooper was free. He was like a 7th-round pick, so 8th-round pick. So, and they both smashed. So, a lot of times, and the market's also pushing down Tampa Bay players a lot now. Like when people don't want to draft a team, everybody starts paying attention, and they all get pushed down. And you're seeing the same thing on Underdog. You're seeing the same thing in FFPC. James Conner's consistently there, where you're drafting him at a point where he won't hurt you unless he gets hurt and misses half the year.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I mean, Cam Akers is the same. I know he had such a bad season, but those last 3 weeks of the season, he looked great. And, he's multiple years now removed from the Achilles. You have some hope that there's no competition that McVay will use him a ton. So both those players, I love the value here.
You just got to hope he doesn't piss off McVay. I mean, like you said, there's nobody behind him. There's nobody behind James Conner. I mean, Keontae Ingram's a guy that maybe, but there's really nothing that you have to worry about. I mean, could James Conner, let you down when it counts at the end? Surely possible, but that's why you have, 6 running backs on your team. I mean, he's a guy that, in my opinion, could get you there and clear the field, and you're getting him in the 7th round, paired with 4 other receivers with Jahmyr Gibbs and his massive upside, a really solid tight end and plenty of potential to go any way the rest of the draft.
And the Akers one is interesting. You bring up Akers. Like, I just took Akers in my main event. I think I was at the the 5-6 turn, and yeah, I agree with you. Like, Akers is in a really good spot. He ended the year so well last year. There's nothing behind him, and I think he's got some potential decent receiving outcomes this year too, based on the lack of weapons there. So I'm into Akers. I'm into Akers a lot. And I just think it's a funny year where running backs are getting pushed down and down, where, usually running backs in that range, you'd kind of have question marks about. But I think just with the love the drafters are showing with these wide receivers, you're going to see pockets of value with running backs in places we didn't always see them. The dead zone is very different this year, in my opinion.
I think you said it when you were at the hard way draft coverage. You said you really love the values of these running backs in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. It's compared to kind of some of the gross wide receiver options, which is just a complete.
Receivers going to start getting pretty gross soon. I mean, you're going to start seeing guys that you just don't want to draft. So, why I like the builds that we're building now is, if you start off Robinson, Pollard, and I'm not saying that's a bad start because it's a great start. I mean, you could have league, 1-2 so far, at running back, but you got Keenan Allen, you got Godwin, you got Johnson. They all have questions. And then who else are you going to put on that team that's going to be able to compete against some of these wide receiver stack teams? To me, it's just so tough to start running back this year. You have to be – your margin for error is so slim. And if anybody falls, if another stud running back falls, it's really hard for you to take them when you got to start getting these receivers soon, because once it gets ugly, it gets real ugly.
All right, Terp, so we're OTC right here.
Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, Antonio Gibson makes sense for us. I like some of the other guys in the queue, but let's
I like him. I like him too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw him as the one guy in the queue, and it's an easy decision. He's my highest owned running back, so I have no issues hitting that button anytime.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of recovered kind of nicely at running back the last 2 rounds with Connor and Gibson. I think we need to start potentially thinking about QB a little bit early to ensure we get some of these quarterbacks we want.
I think obviously Goff is a priority.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's still plenty of different, ways we can go.
Yeah, there's a few ways. We've given ourselves, kind of flexibility with this build by having these 3 running backs here.
It gives us a possibility. Definitely a 3 quarterback build. Probably 3 quarterbacks relatively soon rather than later. I mean, some of these guys will fall a little bit, but there's a couple guys that I'll put in the queue now that I feel like you have one in there, and just like an absolute wild card one. Yeah, you already got him in there too. Yeah, pretty much the same 4.
Yeah.
See, we're on the same. I mean,
Terp, we're this is not our first draft. We know
number 6. Yeah. Number 6, makes a lot of sense. Or number 5 now, I guess he is.
And this one too, I just added in the queue, makes some sense, Terp, because if the needle is threaded and we get down to the money weeks and certain things happen, you might really like having the 7th guy in our queue.
I'm with you there.
I don't even want to say his name out loud because it's some sniper. Because this one could make some sense.
I don't see a 7th guy in the queue. Is he the 6th guy now?
I don't know. Maybe we're off here. I'll put it in our little chat here.
Okay.
I wanted to, Terp, as you read the chat, but I want to ask you, this is your first show since DeAndre Hopkins signed with the Titans. Rest in peace to your Treylon Burks love, I would assume. Treylon Burks goes at 7.
No.
Terp.
No, I'm not giving up on Treylon Burks. He's going to get he's still going to get a lot of targets. Is he going to get as many targets as he did before? No. I think the guy that hurts more than anything is Chig. I mean, I just feel like he's a guy that was being drafted pretty heavily as to be a starter. I mean, 8th round Chig to me is too early, especially now. I mean, I like Ryan Tannehill. Maybe Will Levis takes the next step and leads the team down the stretch, or maybe takes over early and turns into a player. It's possible. A lot of people liked him coming out of college. I know you being one of them. But I still think Treylon Burks if he wants to fall, I'll still take him. I mean, I'm not going to push him up, but I'm definitely still not taking DeAndre Hopkins. I'll tell you that. I
Well,
heard Balky last night said that DeAndre Hopkins is going to get peppered with targets. I'm sorry, I don't see it.
So I'll say that I think Hopkins is going to see targets, but I do like your argument that Burks is going to have like advantageous matchups. I just worry about the fact that we haven't seen a secondary target, break 92 total in any year in Tennessee. So like that scares me a little bit stylistically, but it's the whole argument for like Seattle's changing stylistically. Like Mike Vrabel is a winner. The guy wins games. And I think at the end of the day, it's kind of like saying, I actually have two strong pass catchers. Maybe I need to change things a little bit.
Maybe it's time to throw the ball more.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, like if Treylon Burks can get up to that like T. Higgins range of like 110, then he can really return value at his ADP. But for me, it's like before we were drafting him as a mid wide receiver 3, and I legitimately thought like he could be wide receiver 15. Like he's 100%. Got this 29%
I don't
target
see that
share
anymore.
Yeah. So
but
now
where
I think
he's getting pushed to, I mean, I'm still fine with it. I'm still on 8th round. I mean,
you're going as wide receiver 36. He goes as wide receiver 41. So you're still seeing the effects kind of that Hopkins. It's probably going to drop a little more, I would assume, into that early 8th round.
My guess is by the time the season gets pushed closer, he's going to get pushed farther down. He'll get pushed past one of the Ravens receivers who, has that preseason game, Flowers or Bateman. Michael Pittman, if Anthony Richardson shows anything, will go above him. If Quentin Johnson flashes, he'll start getting pushed past those guys. So he'll definitely be interesting.
Elijah Moore is flying up. Elijah Moore is another guy that I think could have real steam. It's funny because like last year was the disaster, and he's steadily creeping up towards his ADP of last year. I don't think he'll hit 6th round.
The steam is still there, and I don't understand. I mean, I like Elijah Moore. I loved him last year. Burned me last year. Love the talent, but I mean, I don't know. Like certain guys, like you see move up in the draft process, and you're just like, what? I understand people believe in that offense and they think they're going to throw the ball more. Obviously, Watson coming back a full year, but I mean, Amari Cooper's still there, Njoku's still there. I mean, Nick Chubb's still going to get plenty of work. Not even People Jones is no slouch. I don't know if I see the 8th round Elijah Moore. I don't know.
So we had Nelson Sousa on First Class Fantasy with Billy Muzio.
We're on the clock, so I'm going to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry. So I think we're kind of pot committed to quarterback here, Terp.
Yeah, I think we just take.
So I'm okay going. I think kind of number 3 makes some sense, even though he's uncorrelated.
He is, but he's correlated week 17 with our Adams bank.
I'm okay with really any of these. I think kind of.
Actually,
let's take him, Terp.
I think we take 4.
Fine, let's take 4 and let's push it. Good, done. Okay, I'm glad you're on that train. That was the one that I was trying to push
100% on that train. I mean, I'm definitely taking the cheaper guy in that backfield. I don't trust Pete Carroll. I love Kenneth Walker. I think he's a very team. You saw last year he had his moments, but I mean, I feel like we could get away with pushing one of these guys, and we'll likely get 2 out of the 3. Definitely one with the next pick. Yeah, no issues at all.
Yeah, it's a good value where we got him, and I think like I said before, I was trying to insinuate that if the needle gets threaded and we get to the money weeks and DK Metcalf and Charbonnet are eating, then you have a really nice really nice part of that Seattle offense.
Yeah.
And I like that week 17 game against Pittsburgh. I think that could be like a sneaky game for them.
It's definitely an underrated game on the schedule. Obviously, everybody sees the Lions, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bengals. You can keep going on the list of all the games, Broncos, Chargers, but that one just makes too much sense to me as something that's staying under the radar, and I hope it continues to stay under the radar in some of these contests.
Yeah,
it's very dependent on your build, but I can ask both of you at their current ADPs. Kenneth Walker at the 501 and Zach Charbonnet at the 908, which is where you guys got him. Do you prefer one of those relative to the other, or is it all relative to the build you have going?
I think for me personally, it's relative to the build.
Okay.
I think that like the contingent upside for both of them is really strong. I do worry about Pete Carroll getting kind of split wise with those guys, where maybe one of them gets the goal line work and one of them gets like the 2-minute offense. Like there's some nightmare scenarios, Terp, where they're both really a pain in the butt to use.
100%. And that's why, like, if you're in more of a best ball league, you'll get the best case scenario. In a managed league, you're banking on an injury. You're hoping for an injury type of situation because it's going to be really hard to start. You know, definitely Walker's. I mean, you're drafting, fifth pick or whatever. You're going to take him, but I think this gamble might work out here.
The gamble's going to work out, but now we have actually a decision of which one to take. We're kind of pot committed to the stack. Let's see who these guys are going to take first.
Just eagerly awaiting. Brutal two snipes right here, depending on how this goes.
We're not worried about.
We're insulated here because
we're
like
fine at the thing. Yeah. It's just how crazy we feel like being because I saw the guy you put in the queue and he makes my blood flow. So
Terp got a little tingle.
I got a little tingle. I ain't gonna lie.
Well, you also have options to correlate him down the line cheap in some like interesting ways too. So I don't mind him as our QB1. We're pretty open though. Like, okay, Terp. So which of these guys is going to win you 200K is the question. We have correlation with the first two and then uncorrelation with number 3. Number 3 gets you excited.
You see the guy that I have up there? He's the guy that like wins me 200K. We're gambling?
Are we talking about? We're talking about the youngest one, right?
Yes, number 4, the last guy in the queue.
Oh, you're talking about the non-quarterback?
I am.
Okay, so then we're really. I don't think it's too crazy, but we're almost pot committed. I wouldn't mind even a 4 quarterback build if we do that. I think we're committed to 3 quarterbacks. I think the
100%.
number 4. Okay, so number 4 in the queue, we're pretty much done at that position, I think.
I agree.
Okay, so let's take him. Let's take him.
Oh man.
Okay.
Now, he makes me tingle, man.
Yeah, well,
I'm not really worried about what's his name coming back there. So I'm not worried about Dalvin Cook anymore.
Yeah,
I think if they were going to sign him, it would have been done by now.
You kind of nailed it because it's a if Dalvin Cook signs with New England, then I think Devon Achane, his ADP rises back where it was a couple months ago. He was going in the 8th round, and then it kind of get pushed down to the 10th round. But the guy, like in a best ball format, I think he's going to have some really, really big weeks. And everything that they're saying kind of is more and more indications they're going to use him as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And we also have the fact that Miami doesn't have a third pass catcher in general. Like it's a joke what they have in tight end position. So
Chosen Anderson,
yeah,
Braxton Berrios, not really guys I'm really excited about.
Durham Smythe.
Yeah. It was really funny.
This doesn't come back and bite us.
Yeah,
it was really funny to me. The NFL was posting like the new new faces, new places with all the new guys in their jersey. And you have like Ramsey, and they had Braxton Berrios like 3rd on their slide. I was like, wow, like I don't know if he's that deserving of that, but
I mean, Mostert's not somebody I'm really worried about. It just comes down to.
So I put in 2 contingent options, Terp, because I think we are kind of pot committed here to the position. And if we get bang, I think we got to go with one of those 2 guys.
I agree. I mean,
real quick, if Dalvin Cook let's say Dalvin Cook signs with New England, how high does Achane's ADP go? Because I would assume his ADP has been suppressed a bit by this looming specter of Cook and the possibility that he signs with the Dolphins.
I think immediately he becomes an 8th rounder. And I think that if he has a strong preseason, he could be a 7th rounder that people are excited about. Like, he can really go. And I like the fact that it sounds like he put on a little weight. He's in the 190s now. Like, he was a legitimate track and field star, like real speed. And I think that he can be a 190-pounder. I think the fears was that he was going to be like a 180-pound back, which really kind of scares you. But he's a really good in-between the tackles runner. And, like, Terp, you've seen it a million times. These guys that have success in the SEC at the running back position, that's the best conference in college football for future NFL success.
1,000%
at the running back. So it's like, I mean, Achane's a baller. He's just small. So I like what we did, and also, we're seeing the running. We also have exposure to 3 rookie running backs, and even as we get more and more sophisticated as drafters, and we have so much information every single year, you still see rookie running backs hit every single year. So if these guys are getting the bulk of the work towards the end of the season, we got a very dangerous build.
It was a shocking lack of buzz for Achane entering just the NFL draft for, I thought, the performances he put on in college at A&M in the SEC, that I was surprised that he wasn't getting more buzz. You saw some...
A&M's such a dusty offense. You're not going to see the...
Yeah, but he was...
That's...
Yeah. I mean, we ran that risk.
We did.
I was going to ask you guys if... I don't want to jinx anything by mentioning... I was wondering at the 908 if Jamison Williams fell, if you guys were going to take him and then turn around and go Goff in round 10. I didn't know if that was at all under consideration.
I mean, we saw stars in our eyes and we flew too close to the sun on the quarterback build.
We did, but I'm not going to sit here and say we didn't get a little crazy with both those picks. But I mean, there's still plenty of guys left that, like I said, it's going to be a 4 QB build. We're going to get creative with the stacks, but there's still plenty of options that I'm not worried about.
Yeah, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. I think that at the end of the day, we just are kind of it makes us a little less flexible with what we can do is kind of the negative, where if you see some outstanding value, you're not able to like pounce on it. That I don't like. But other than that, like, I think this is an unbelievable build that we've done if you take away the quarterback position. So we still have to also, get a little more tight end help here. And we're not done at wideout. So we have to kind of stay flexible.
Running back, we're not even looking at anytime soon, if at all.
Some more Achane love in the comments for you guys. They're pointing out also that the money rounds, week 15 through 17, the Dolphins play the Jets, Cowboys, and Ravens. So that should be 3 explosive matchups. And then Biplat Mandela in the comment section notes, and hey, if Tyreek does for any reason miss any time, that's going to help Achane a lot. So they're loving that pick.
So we have Creeper has 2 quarterbacks already. He's OTC. And then I'm looking at the correlation, what Billy and Dave are looking to build here. Billy and Dave love dumpster diving at quarterback as well, and Mac Nova has a double QB. So we might have our choice of our guys in the queue right now, Terp.
Yeah. I mean, unless Billy does, because they're doing the same thing we're doing pretty much. Mm-hmm. Just in a little bit different way. But yeah.
So Billy's not going to pull the trigger on quarterback for this build. They're going to go super sicko. I guarantee you they want to grab like Ryan Tannehill, and they're going to grab.
To me, it's Russ.
Yeah, I'm on Russ. I think Russ is fine, and I think there's some backdoor ways of correlating him. And I think he's got I'm not as high on him as some people, but I think it's fine. Let's take Russ, and he's a nice foundational QB1 for us.
Gives us some, like you said, some backdoor options later.
Yeah, and we don't have to feel sick to our stomach about the QB position right now. We at least have one of them and one that has, legitimate QB 10 upside. Like, I get the people betting on Russell Wilson with a huge bounce back. I'm not so sure, but I do think he's going to finish better than quarterback 17 where we drafted him. And Terp, even in
do this, I think, as you said, it's a 4 QB build at this point. I think there's definitely ways to make this. I mean, this team is very solid. This is one of the best teams I think I've seen on these live draft coverage in terms of people drafting with us. But I'm very intrigued to see where you guys go in these last 8 rounds to see how you build out this quarterback position.
I think the worst thing you can do though is to kind of like panic draft. Like even if at the end of the day, we're not trying to win just this league. We're trying to win big money. So at the 100%. End of the day, if you burn $125, that's kind of the mentality. You have to be willing to finish last to finish first. Yeah, that's kind of the best ball. You have to act like you're right. And at the end of the day, the running back bets we made were worth pushing quarterback down. So Terp, I will say there's a certain tight end that makes a lot of sense for us as well coming up. And if we're going to take him, it's going to have to be now.
Let's see who we're talking about.
I'm going to load him in the queue.
I think I already did.
So while you guys are doing that, some more love in the comments. Mac Nova, who is actually drafting out of the 7th spot today, he says, I mean, as we can see by his build, he does not go running backs early, but he said he rarely has ever gone 5 running backs within the first 10 rounds, but he loves the 5 running backs that you guys drafted that group. So again, chat is overflowing with compliments, which, as Turk can attest, we don't always see. We don't always see compliments. So this has been
usually I'm pretty mean on these shows, so like people are giving us compliments. That's always a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, we're not turning them down.
No.
So we have two very interesting guys at the top of the queue. I will say number 4 though is very, very intriguing. Terp. It's not even for the correlation, just for the if the market is reading him incorrectly.
Yeah. He makes sense for this build. Do I love him? Do I love the situation? No, but I mean, he makes. If we're going 4 quarterbacks, I mean, he could be a league winner when it counts. I don't. I've been on record that I don't love him at all. I think there's a world where he sits out the season, but
I kind of like the idea of number 1.
We can do some stuff with him later.
I think number 1 makes a lot of sense. If you start looking at like the rest of the position, there's not a whole lot of things I like about it.
And we're betting on an offense, so let's just call it what it is.
100%. And like it's a hedge with some of the things we've already put equity into. I think we pulled the trigger with number 1, despite the needs at the other spots. Number 7 is interesting too. I think we go. Hey, listen, if you want to go,
I think we go 1.
Let's go 1. Done. Fire away.
Just talking about him, Sam LaPorta.
Yeah, so we get LaPorta.
Curious what his number is. Where's the latest he's gone? I feel like he's got pushed up a lot. 12 seems late for him. Am I totally off here?
1309.
13.9.
No,
but I feel like you're right though, Terp. It's draft specific for LaPorta, where some people like clearly want him above like the Cole Kmet, like Irv Smith, like Gerald Everett tier. And some people, still have their reservations about him. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you what, that first night in Vegas is going to be a lot of fun for this build, because all 3 of our guys that they got the whole target tree.
We're going to be looking, straight up. There's no Jameson Williams. I mean, Marvin Jones catches a touchdown. We're going to be looking at each other like, Jesus, God.
Yeah, I know. Marv
David Montgomery show or something like that.
Yeah, if David Montgomery falls in the end zone 3 times, we're going to be throwing up.
Theo, though,
Billy is just dumb. Billy and Dave are just dumb. They're in the dumpsters with us right now. We're trying to figure out a way out, but
Billy and Dave love this sort of thing though. Billy's I've done a high stakes draft with Billy where we didn't take our quarterback until like the 17th round. It was disgusting. I think we ended up with like Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield or something.
I like their thought process behind it because it's the same. It's kind of the same as ours, but if you're pushing the Mahomes, the Hurts, the Josh Allens, the Lamars of the world, you're passing on some really, really talented players there. And I'm not saying that those guys couldn't be league winners, but let's just say they don't pan out and things don't work out with any of those 4. You're putting yourself in such a hurdle.
Well, it's going
to be hard to get out of.
Well, I like what they did running back wise, and I like what they did with those rounds 8 through 12 wide receivers.
Yep.
They're good drafters for a reason. Looking at some of the other teams, this is there's nothing too crazy. Like you could tell there's a lot of guys here who understand structure. There's not a whole lot of terrible team builds, but I do like what we've done. So we'll see.
I wanted to ask, we talked about Vegas and the impact the Thursday game has on it. If let's say there's a David Montgomery show, you're going to be bummed at all the teams, but Theo and Turf for both of you as 2 big Jahmyr Gibbs guys, is there at least some in the back of your head? It's like, all right, well, I'm going to be getting great value on the dip in those Thursday night, maybe even Friday morning drafts on Jahmyr Gibbs as he drops like a stone with the David Montgomery Warriors. Is that an outcome where you wouldn't mind?
I think the only scary outcome is if Gibbs doesn't get targeted. And for whatever reason, they're throwing the ball to it would be as long as the way they're talking about Gibbs. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but they're talking about using him in the slot. They're talking about using him as a weapon. They've used the word like Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. This is exactly what I want to hear. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a little bit more consolidated target tree than you'd have if Jameson Williams was down there and they're taking shots to him downfield. So I think a lot of what they're going to have to do to move the ball, especially against Kansas City, is going to be a little bit of underneath. I think Montgomery's going to be used, of course, but at the end of the day, I think Gibbs is pretty insulated. Even if he has 10 points, 12 points, I don't think he drops out of the 4th round.
Okay. Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, obviously we know the range of outcomes if he goes nuts, but if he, puts up 8 to 10, like you said, 12 points, I don't see him falling too far. I mean, there's just too much positive press surrounding him. I mean, the coaches, you saw when they drafted him, they went nuts. So it's really hard not to be excited about him this year. I mean, I like David Montgomery too. I think he's a solid value in drafts. I think he's going to get plenty of work. But Jahmyr Gibbs just has that running back one upside, and that's what you look for. And if you can get a guy like that, mid third round, somewhere in the third round, you have to be excited about it.
And all those guys have hit. Like we've seen all those running backs who get drafted in the top 15, they all hit. And now we love the offense too. Like I think that guy Ben Johnson is a future NFL head coach, and he was able to maximize all of his guys last year. I mean, there was some frustration for DeAndre Swift managers, but like everybody else, he's able to get a lot out of. And I don't see any reason why Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to be one of those guys. So I'm bullish on Detroit, obviously. I mean, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown and Gibbs are just smashes right now. So Terp, it's kind of this last run is kind of working out kind of nicely for us.
Very nice.
Let's see if Bluffing Rivers goes with their QB1 here.
What are your guys' thoughts on their team? I know we've talked about how they're dumpster diving for quarterbacks with you guys, but Billy, friend of the program, he's been on. He was on during the hardware draft the same night you were. But what are your thoughts on Team 6 right there, Billy and Hubbard?
Well, they have a lot of firepower with the Mandrews, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill start. And then structurally, it's a very, like that sort of range of running backs, Billy's always able to kind of extract value. But for me, what stands out the most is the Burks, Bateman, Collins, Mooney. And I feel like Terp, like they also as volume drafters, they feel like a little less pressure to kind of grab, the elite quarterback tier. They're already kind of guys that are comfortable like getting off of the elite quarterbacks and drafting you later QB. And the fact that they will have some exposure to those elite quarterbacks though. So this has kind of worked out fine for them. It'll be interesting to see because right now they don't have a quarterback, and is that going to hold this build back? It remains to be seen. But in terms of firepower, I mean, like Swift has a lot of upside. White has a lot of upside. Dave talked a lot about the Burks, and then obviously I like where they got Bateman a lot. I like Nico Collins. I've been drafting him a lot. So I don't mind their team at all. There goes Derek Carr. And they have uncorrelated Derek Carr, which is kind of interesting. They're just taking him for structure. So that kind of, we're almost auto QB right here on this pick, Terp.
100%. I don't think it's any question whatsoever. I mean, there's obviously guys we like, but I don't think we should get cute here.
Well, getting cute would be number 2, wouldn't it, for this build? Is that cute?
Yeah, I think. I mean, to me, it's number 3 or number 5. Yeah, I agree. I would say.
Or you could push it and you could take. I think we could just take the veteran, and then I think the other one has a better chance of wrapping around.
Yeah, I like. If we're talking about Stafford, I think that's the guy that we should take.
Take Stafford. Russell Wilson and Matt Stafford, man. If we had a time machine,
this dreams are made of, baby.
2018 is calling. They want their quarterbacks back.
Fire up that DeLorean, Terp, and this team.
We only need one.
That's right. We just need one.
I mean, we're not done. Like 4 quarterback builds is not something we're going to recommend a ton, but in certain builds, like the one we have, I mean, it makes a ton of sense.
And I feel like you're not necessarily forced into 4. Like we could go 3 if one of these guys.
We could go 4, depending on what we could do tricky wise. Because I mean, it does get a little dark here soon, and obviously we like stacking, and some of these guys like we don't really want to go naked with.
I will say number 1 is really, really intriguing. If we're not, if you want to have a little bit of correlation.
Oh, it's that number 1 is. I mean, I would have took him there.
Yeah,
so I'm all aboard the number 1 train.
I'm with you.
I don't see there being no reason to get too cute. I mean, if we got to push a little bit, we'll push a little bit, but there's still, I mean, we still have, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, if we really, I'm not really scared about talking about his name. If we really want to get crazy with Adams.
There are certainly options out there, which I'm sure you guys are kind of analyzing all of them.
Yeah, there's a ton of options pretty much everywhere, and one option where there's nowhere at is running back. There's not really anybody that my guess is we're really in love with.
No, I mean, at this point, it's sort of the handcuff tier of running backs, and we don't need to take one here in the 14th round. I mean, I think that the outcomes for the 15th and 16th round running backs are pretty similar to the guys you would take right here. Mm-hmm. I like a couple of these guys more for redraft than for best ball in the running back range right here. But I think the guys we have in the queue are good. I think this might end up being a conversation when it comes around.
You guys obviously still quarterback hunting in these later rounds relative to the build. Kind of talked about earlier, what's your ideal kind of receiver number to have? And you guys went 4 receivers early. Or there's kind of, we talked about we've seen a lot of builds with people who go receivers early. They try and find those lottery ticket receivers that they love, those young upside players in these later rounds. Is that going to be coming into the equation for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the problem with chasing quarterback is we're giving up wide receiver value, but there's still plenty of guys on the board with like spike weeks that are like, not to use the cliche, but better and best ball type wide receivers. There's still a ton of those guys on the board. So
there's a ton of receivers there that are like, I'm not worried about the receiver position at all.
Yeah.
There's plenty of guys that we can get creative with.
And Theo, you said you don't like the term, but it is true. There are some players who, just based on their style and how they perform on a week to week, they are better for best ball. They're going to have those massive explosions and then a bunch of weeks of putting up zeros. But that's kind of what you need to target late.
Yeah, I just think it's like a cop out for some industry people that don't want to take stands on guys, and they'll just kind of say that they kind of like everybody, and that's kind of my hate. I guess I am kind of here we go, Terp. Let's do we want to just take number 1 here and get it over?
I think we shouldn't get cute and just take him.
So I don't.
Is there anybody?
Does he come back around to us?
I don't think so. I think. I mean, is there somebody you like more?
No, I like him a lot. But I also think that there's something to be said about taking. I think there's something to be said about taking Bryce Young here. I go either way, Terp. Let's take the wide receiver though. Let's go with the guy we like. Let's take Marvin Mims. Okay, so we get a little bit of correlation with Russell Wilson here. Yeah.
Everyone's favorite, absolute absurd athletic score receiver, Marvin Mims.
I love Marvin Mims.
Love the talent. So do I. I mean, could he have made it back? It's possible, but would I have been upset to have, Russ by himself? Yeah, we could pair him with Tim Patrick, but that doesn't really excite anybody.
I'm sure you guys are bummed that Juju goes a pick before you. I know Theo's all in on Juju Smith-Schuster, Terp, as are you. But
I took him when I was in the hard way because it was like the jammed, but you feel like totally gross about it. Like
I wouldn't take it in the 20th round.
Balky yesterday.
There's no path.
Balky yesterday in Fantasy Burst said, yeah, Juju possesses some upside. And I said, those are 2 words that should never be spoken together, is Juju and upside. He gave his spiel about why, and I said,
I was listening to him. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was cutting the grass, and I'm like, let me listen to these bozos talk. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, he's talking about upside with Juju? And then you corrected him. He was like, yeah, he still has upside. I was like, Balky, what have you been drinking?
Well,
yeah, man, you got no
Juju somehow deliver on his draft well over, and you're just like, man, like how? This doesn't make sense. This game we play does not make any sense.
I like Gesicki. I think Gesicki's interesting from that offense. I'm starting to like. I just took him in my main. I think he's going to see his ADP rise up a little bit. But that Patriots offense, it just could be really an annoying one, especially if they add a second running back. I mean, it's terrible for Ramondre Stevenson. I
thought we were out of it, and then all the rumors, Dalvin or Leonard, just seems like one of them is going to be a Patriot.
That would really put an interesting, fix on what happens with Ramondre. Does he get pushed? I mean, he's still a beast, and obviously, I'm a very, very high on him. I pushed him up in some drafts to get him, but Dalvin Cook's going to be annoying there, and it's still Bill Belichick.
It's going to be terribly annoying, and also like Bill Belichick is one of these guys who thinks obviously the guy's extremely successful, but he's the smartest man in the room, and I think at the end of the day, they're at a significant quarterback disadvantage in that conference, and I think that the way that they protect Mac Jones or if it is Bailey Zappi at some point is a two-headed monster at running back. I think it could be super annoying for us as fantasy football gamers, but in terms of like real life football, that's probably the best bet, Terp, to get a ton of touches for those guys and kind of ride both of them and use them both out of the backfield. It really, the thing for Stevenson, even if Stevenson's touchdowns go up in a more efficient offense, it's the receiving work. Like Dalvin Cook's going to get some of those targets, and that crushes Stevenson. So he's
disaster, complete disaster.
I think someone was tweeting that the concern is that Ramondre retains his first and second down work, and Dalvin would be the pass catching back, or Leonard would be the pass catching back.
That would be disgusting. I think that the
but that'd be something that Bill Belichick would do. That's why like people always say like it's hard to trust a Bill Belichick team now without Tom Brady. But I mean, these last couple of years, he's been exposed, and I keep seeing rumors of him being on the hot seat. He should be on the hot seat.
There's some beat reporters were saying that.
They should get slaughtered in that division this year. If they win a game in that division, they're clearly the fourth worst team.
Just frustrating how NFL teams, GMs, coaches don't think of us fantasy players with their roster decisions.
No, they don't care at all about us. It's sad.
They should. But no, we'll watch that because that addition seems coming. And then while we're on the Patriots, I've seen some buzz that because he's free in draft, he's going late 18th right now. Is Devontae Parker maybe a value out of that receiving core? We don't like Juju. We've kind of been over that. Is Devontae Parker free?
I liked Tyquan Thornton a little bit.
Did I?
And I don't know. I think Devontae Parker, people kind of react a little bit more to the contract. I mean, maybe it's an offense you just want to fade the entire wide receiver position and not really dive into it at all. It's such a bad group. And I think Jacoby Myers kind of showed you what the peak of a receiver could do with that group. So, like, none of those guys are better than Myers. And you saw how he was last year. So if you're taking shots, you're hoping to get that like wide receiver 3 type, like you saw with Myers. The beauty of Tyquan Thornton is we have seen spike week games, and like they have used him. But he could also just be a super fast gadget player, which like that's fine too.
Doesn't really fit that offense well.
Yeah, but at least
think
he's
it
fast.
would. But Mac Jones is. I mean, he hasn't been great so far.
Yeah.
Could that be his fault? Possibly, but most of it's probably the fault of the Matt Patricia's, the offensive coordinator. I still can't believe that.
So Terp, we have a couple of. I really like the wide receiver and the tight end we have in here.
Okay.
And then obviously we're still kind of, obviously needing at the QB spot. Where are you at?
At this point, I feel like it has to be a 4 QB build, and we still have one option that's not really sexy at all, but I'll throw him in there as the 4th option. I mean, it's dumpster diving, but I feel like at this point we take one of the receivers or the tight end. I'm fine with too. Actually, the tight end I'm probably more fine with.
I will say that there's been a real run on
receivers.
Yeah, so I don't mind taking the wide receiver here just because I think he fits this build as a high upside guy, a deep threat.
Do you want to go? I feel like no matter what, we're not taking either of these two again. If they fall, probably not at least.
I think I'm just looking at the team. The Joe Burrow team is going to take a quarterback here.
Yep.
So we're kind of risking losing one, but I guess we're kind of flat with all of them.
They're all about the same.
So I'm on Pierce, or I would go with. I think we just take Pierce and let him choose our quarterback.
It makes sense for what we have going in banking on Yeah, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying now. It makes sense. I mean, he has upside. Obviously, we're banking on the week 17 with Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
And possibly some other things down the road.
And you already see Michael Pittman banged up, and Josh Downs is very different from Alec Pierce.
Yeah,
so
100%. And these receiver runs we don't want to get caught, like you said.
We're
6 or 7 receivers in a row. We're at 6. Probably, I would guess, 2 QBs. I mean, I guess we could look at a running back real late, but I think we.
Yeah. So of these QBs, number 5 is kind of interesting. I'm moving him up the board.
I love number 5. He's my highest owned best ball quarterback.
Okay. So I think if he's there, we take him, even though it's
he's not going to get past another team that's looking for quarterbacks, I would think. So to me, I mean, and we still have some tricky options down the road with other guys with him. He's a guy I've been drafting a ton.
I don't know, Terp. He might get here.
I don't want to speak about it, but I mean, it's possible.
He might get here. We'll see.
Is the question of does Team 11 take him? That's what I think is the best.
I think Team 11's done.
Oh, yeah, because they have the 2 quarterbacks. I can't see the board. I forget. Thanks again for Justin Herbert's night.
Yeah, so, but I don't know, like I know that I used to kind of make fun of the 2 early QB best ball builds, but I have been very much corrected by some the Todd Burrowses, and Mojo has shown like the win rates. Like those double quarterback hits, like if you get Lamar Jackson or Justin Herbert and they're both top 5 quarterbacks, like Team 11's, I you feel way less dangerous, but in terms of like the computers, it makes some sense.
To me, if you're doing it like Billy was on, obviously the last show, and he was doing the wild build with the 2 tight ends and the 2 quarterbacks, but they made sense because they were obviously stacked with their quarterbacks. So it made sense. But if you're doing like Lamar Jackson naked, now he has Beckham, so I guess not really. So yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it definitely could pan out. Quentin Johnson, if he takes over there, obviously Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are huge injury risks. So I guess, I mean, it's definitely filled out his roster after those 2 picks. They didn't really make sense at the time, but yeah.
So Terp, I would say that if we don't get number 1, I would go with number 3, because I think some of these other guys are going to be there for us next go around.
I agree with you.
So
number one's a slam dunk.
Number 1, and then our backup is number 2. We have 3. Yeah, he's now. I just moved him up to 2 in the queue.
Oh yeah, okay, got it.
So and then that would give us. I think we'd be done there.
Oh yeah, done. And for whatever reason he doesn't make it back, I'm going to put another guy on this list that to me might, not. I'm going to put another guy on the list, but he's not. I'm not really with it. The last guy I put on the list, the tight end.
Okay, so you're here. We can take your guy C.J. Stroud.
Oh, yes, take him.
So let's take C.J. Stroud.
We're not on the bot. We're not on the clock yet. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, didn't do it.
You guys survived.
Oh my gosh, I misread it. Kirk.
Almost nearly a disaster. Nearly a disaster.
Yeah, I misread the board. We still got him. So that was
Team 9 could have done the funniest thing. They could have. I mean, they would have been a wasted pick.
I would have laughed. It would have been funny.
The gamesmanship of Team 9, but there you go. All right, so we're okay now. I mean, I think now, Terp, I don't think we need 4 QBs. I think if you want 4 QBs, we can take them. But now I think we're kind of flexible.
The only way we take a 4th QB is if the guy that we talked about as a secondary option makes it back, and then on the other way, just go all in.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That would be the only way that I would take a 4th at this point. I mean, at the end of the day, this team's going to live or die by the quarterback position, and it just gives us a lot more flexibility if we just stay with 3. If that guy does not make it back, to give us,
I'm adding a few more. I think there's also a few different correlation ideas.
Yeah.
We're in pretty good shape here, though, now that we got Stroud. I think Stroud at least insulates us a little bit.
question for you guys. 15th round, Leonard Fournette goes. Finally, the first reports of the offseason. Dalvin's obviously been rumored to so much. Leonard Fournette was radio silent. Who knew what he was doing? Finally, he's working out for the Patriots. Again, statistically, eye test told you differently than some of the stats last year. The stats, I think, were a little kinder to him than what we saw in Tampa. But let's say he signs with New England. Obviously, hurts Ramondre. I think we all agree Ramondre is way more talented, way better, younger, everything. But in a Bill Belichick offense, is he going to provide some good value for some of these teams who've been getting him in these 15th, 16th, even 17th rounds in some of these earlier best ball tournament drafts?
I think absolutely. If you're getting him below round 15 and he signs with New England, I think that's a pretty good outcome for him. Regardless of Ramondre Stevenson, he's definitely would kind of make my Pierre Strong bags kind of not look as good. But I don't know. I think it's interesting what's going on here. I think that it's Dalvin Cook is the one that they want. The Vegas books are telling you that that's the one they want. And maybe it's New England kind of like hinting at Dalvin's agent that, hey, we can sign one of these other running backs if he doesn't want to play ball. You never know the kind of the inner workings of these NFL negotiations. But at the end of the day, I trust Vegas. I think that's usually the way to go. And they're telling you it's going to be Dalvin Cook as the New England Patriots. So I've already accepted it. Terp, do you think that that's smoke, or do you think it's going to happen?
I think it's going to happen too. I mean, I still think the Jets are a very close second. I think obviously there goes that one guy that we were talking about. So that eliminates the third QB build. But I mean, like you said, I don't know. It just makes too much sense. I mean,
both of those options are awful for fantasy. The Jets and Patriots just two brutal outcomes.
Like Breece Hall going on the PUP list. Do we expect it? Kind of. Obviously, there was a ton of positive press recently. He was ready. He was cutting. He was, tweeting and all that cool stuff. But Breece Hall's he is the definition this year of a league winner, or a guy that can just blow up your team if he does not, turn into what people think he's going to turn into coming off that injury. He's a guy that I've been drafting comfortably. He's a guy that I'll probably slow down a little bit and wait for a little bit more news. So much we're starting to get into big money time, and we're starting to get in the main events and these fantasy pros drafts. You got to be a little more, in my opinion, selective when it comes to a guy like Breece Hall. I don't think he's going to get pushed up enough to where, let's just say he gets off the PUP list. He's not going to move up to where you can't draft him. He's not going to get to the second round or anything crazy.
So I'll say, tight end is kind of standing out here. It's a little ugly here, Terp.
I put one guy on the list. I know you have one guy on the list. I'm fine with either one.
I put one at the bottom that I think lasts till the 18th.
Makes sense. Yep, definitely. He's a guy that we could probably wait on.
Yeah, so I think here we're kind of neutral with what we do. I do think that the wide receiver towards the top of our list gives us a little bit more potential correlation.
I agree, and we're hoping for a trade possibly with Sutton.
Yeah.
I don't think somebody's taking Tim Patrick here, but if they do, they do.
Yeah, I think I kind of lead in Tim Patrick here in this build.
I agree. Who am I looking for?
So this kind of speeds up the process, though. They just took one of our last tight ends.
Actually, our last two just went.
So I think we're kind of forced into this one, Terp. If you want to risk it, we can risk it coming back around. But
let me just look at tight end real quick. See if there's
bad.
Anybody.
It's ugly. It's ripped apart.
I believe there is a name that I've kind of turned on since we had Bradley Stalder on the show, and he just got
drafted. And he's the guy that I was trying to.
I didn't even realize that Hunter Henry yet. Since Bradley's really high on him, but he makes some good points.
Bradley also today was trying to talk me into Latavius Murray as the back to draft in Buffalo, so I'm tilted on Bradley.
Can't. Hunter Henry was the one that I actually after he said it. When I said, hey, let's draft Hunter Henry, he got real excited about it. I'm like, am I missing something with Hunter Henry? Is this the guy that I'm just not seeing? And so I actually started looking into him more, and he's a tight end 12. That's a monster. It's a monster prediction out there, and he's a smart guy.
Bradley Stats was giving us some info on Hunter Henry.
He was bringing the heat when he was on the last one we did.
Bradley is super sharp in his statistical takes, and he's also willing to go against the grains. I definitely respect him on that one. I just feel like Hunter Henry is the touchdown dependent tight end in New England. Giuseppe is the one who's going to end up getting the most targets. So I don't know. I'm on the Giuseppe train in New England.
I was really hoping for Giuseppe to get a better landing spot than New England. That's the guy that I was really paying attention to in free agency. I was really hoping got moved somewhere better.
So he's not far from you guys. He's a South Jersey guy, and he was a huge recruit for Penn State.
Yeah.
And that was Bill O'Brien who recruited him there. So he's got the connection to Bill O'Brien, and Bill O'Brien and him obviously have. Bill O'Brien did not coach him at Penn State, but they had a good enough relationship that, I mean, this is Giuseppe has had a ton of success and then kind of faded away, and he's betting on himself in New England. So I don't know, Terp. Stranger things have happened. It's a nice narrative to get with the this guy that recruited you, and he was a massive recruit for Penn State. So we'll see. All right, so I think we're pot committed to number 1 if he's there.
100%. I put a guy in the queue who can't say I love him, but
all right, Papa Docs, don't take our guy, Papa Docs.
I don't think so.
Catching up on the comment section real quick. Theo, people are going back. They said Theo was on Achane before he even landed in the perfect spot. So you're getting some praise for.
Achane was my guy. I got in arguments with Cody Carpentier and a little bit with Matt Kelly about I think player profiler, I think we do a great job with running backs, but we're into the prototypical size guys. Take them, Terp. The prototypical size speed guys usually are the kind of guys we lean into, like more of the Antonio Gibson type running back. But Achane, when you watch him, he's just such a good running back in the SEC, and he was such an effective inside runner and so dynamic. I always really liked Achane, and I always was kind of ahead of consensus with him, and then he landed in the nuts landing spot, and that's all she wrote. Sometimes it's an easy game when guys land with smart minds.
All we need to do is just pan out, and then you got to trust Mike McDaniel. Obviously, that's something that people that trusted him last year got paid off, and I expect it to continue this year because, like we talk about, that route tree and that the speed that they possess, he fits perfectly for that.
Question in the chat for you guys real quick. I like covering the people watching their question. They want to ask, do you guys think that Richie James could be that Sky Moore for the slot position in Kansas City's camp?
I don't know. I've seen the Richie James love. I think he's a target squeeze, and I don't think he's going to do anything. I think Sky Moore is the one I'm trying to bet on. Sky Moore is creeping up. He's like wide receiver 50 now in main events. And I think by the time we draft in Vegas, I think he's going to be easily in a high-end wide receiver 4.
He caught a pass today from Patrick Mahomes in minicamp, I think I saw. That's going to move him up 2 rounds.
Yeah. I mean, Sky Moore, the craziest stat was Sky Moore was the first non-Power 5 early declare wide receiver to get drafted in the 2nd round since Devontae Adams. So, the dude's an astronaut coming from, Western Michigan to getting drafted in the 2nd round. And last year, he's kind of forgotten. And usually when the guys kind of disappear their rookie year and don't do anything, you want to fade them. But I don't know. It's Andy Reid. It's a team that won the Super Bowl. Maybe there could be some slow playing with it. And also, sometimes these guys that come from the lesser conferences, it takes them a little bit longer to get acclimated. So I'm kind of making excuses for him. But you didn't want to get off of Devontae Adams that early. So I don't think he's got that in his range of outcomes, but it's Terp, it's you see all this steam for Kadarius Toney. Sky Moore can do a lot of the same things as Toney, and they use the 2nd round pick on him.
The best quarterback in the game. I mean, they're gonna give him the chances. And I mean, Kadarius Toney, like you say, he's getting steamed up, but I mean, he's the biggest wild card in fantasy football. I mean, his range of outcomes are Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, possibly to 18th round draft pick.
What did you think of his music video, Terp? And you give it a 1 through 10, in terms of athletes?
I give it a solid 7.
Yeah,
7,
it wasn't
maybe.
bad. People are panning him, but
it wasn't bad. It wasn't
I've heard
bad.
much worse. I've heard much worse from athletes. That was
Kadarius
not
Toney,
awful.
the music video?
Yeah. It's
I saw Kadarius Toney in people's DMs that he claimed he was hacked. That was rough.
That probably not the best, but
it was a lot of auto-tune. But I got to say, it was not the worst I've ever heard from. Sometimes you hear an athlete dropping music. I mean, I'm a little older than you guys. Shaquille O'Neal, we had not a whole lot of great things there.
Cole Beasley.
Cole Beasley actually is not a bad rapper. Not a bad rapper at all. He's not bad. Not bad. Okay, Tank Dell out of our queue.
That was kind of annoying. Both those guys, it would make a little bit of sense, but
real quick, my favorite thing now is people who draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire in like the last 3-4 rounds. They love popping in the chat just to see what I think of the pick. It's just a no thing how much
I know how much you hate him, and you're never going to change. I get that. I understand. It's
I just
painful.
love how that people know they're in the chat. Like, I'm trying to get on Aidan's good side with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The worst.
I loaded our queue up with
saw.
with wide receivers, and I'm also going to throw in one interesting idea here, because I don't like doing it, but in the 19th round, I don't think it hurts us if we added one more running back in the one that I put in there.
Couldn't agree more. Saw he just put in very high on him.
Yeah,
talked him down earlier, but it makes sense for what we're betting on.
So it comes down to a structural decision, though, Terp, because we have a couple of dice roll tight ends. I feel not a whole lot of safety with Logan Thomas.
No.
So we have a couple of dice roll tight ends. If we take, so it becomes a structural. Where do you feel the worst at right now? I feel like for me, we're at a 7 wide receiver build. We're kind of okay.
Here's my question. I know we talked about not doing it, but since we got no correlation that's with Stafford and Stroud, is there any Jimmy Garoppolo? Does he make sense with Adams? Just betting on that shootout. I mean, I don't love it, but I mean, looking at all these other guys, I don't know if I love any of them outside of like the Giants guys.
Well, I think the Giants guys, one of them kind of gives us the biggest edge.
Yeah, I say we take one of those now, and if we get back to the 20th, we decide between 9 and 10.
So I think that the one that makes the most sense is Darius Slayton.
Let's get that.
As much as we want one of those other guys, I think Slayton makes sense, and he flashed last year. And you see Papa Docs take Jalen Hyatt right away. Someone probably takes Wan'Dale Robinson before the end of this draft too. So it's like
there went the idea that I have with Garoppolo, but I'm not like crying about it.
Yeah.
Is there any like
at the end of the day, I think that the correlation lean in would be the second to last guy. But my argument is when you get to this round, if it ends up being a position that like kind of scores decently, I think they're very much like for like players. And the fact is this 20th round can oftentimes give you a 0 for the whole year. Like the 20th round is not necessarily like if we get 2 usable weeks, then this is a good pick.
100%.
So I kind of like the idea of double tapping there, Terp, and go with number 7.
I 100% agree. I was going to push for Garoppolo if he made it back just to, bet on that week 17 game, knowing that we're going to be there, obviously. But it just makes too much sense with the build. I mean, if he comes back, which is still a question with all these guys being taken here that kind of are in the same realm.
There's a lot of drafts you get where you have hindsight 2020. It's only the 18th round, so how much? But was there any little tinge of regret that you didn't take Tank Dell over Logan Thomas there?
I think we're just so jammed at the tight end position.
Okay.
I think that at the end of the day, the 2 picks we're really riding on are the Charbonnet and Achane plays.
100%.
We grab the value. They're both presented incredible upside to us. And I think if certain things work out, then we're getting running back 2 value with like spike week potential out of those guys. And they both have receiving upside. Like if like Charbonnet can catch the ball, Achane can catch the ball. If Ken Walker goes down, Charbonnet could be really, really useful. So it's worth it. And at the end of the day, like the Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, CJ Stroud, like that's better than I thought it would end up getting. Like at the end of the day, Terp, if you ended up with like Sam Howell and Ritter instead of Stroud, like you wouldn't have been able to get one of these wide receivers. It's
Correct.
So I think we'll take Keontae
and Graham, yeah.
So we double tap the Arizona running back position.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're just screwed if like Kareem Hunt signs there in a week. We burned it.
If Kareem Hunt signs there, any of those dust buckets sign there, they really are dusty.
Yeah, for sure. But I like the build. This team has a lot of firepower, and
it's going to come down to the quarterbacks. Let's just call it what it is. Obviously, we need Darren Waller to stay healthy. LaPorta to take. We're betting on the offensive lines. Offense doesn't get it done. This team could be in a world of hurt. But at the end of the day, if Russ comes back with Sean Payton, somehow Cortland Sutton gets out of town or there's an injury, Patrick, is the hottest, name in camp, like we keep hearing, and Marvin Mims. We're betting on Stafford playing 17 games, which is a big if. But CJ Stroud's a guy that, is he the sexiest pick? No, but he's definitely a guy that is starting from day one, is not coming out unless he gets hurt.
And I think he's also the kind of younger quarterback where you want to see the offense take more chances towards the end of the year, and maybe his game develops as the season moves along.
A lot of potential receivers with Collins, Michie, and Tank Dell, Robert Woods. I guess if you're on that train, Dalton Schultz. They're underrated when it comes to one of those guys could be a league winner. It's a question of which one.
So I think that my biggest concern with this team would be like a lack of correlation. Like we have kind of the quarterback position, we don't have any real correlation. I think that there's a chance that Russell Wilson, Marvin Mims become something. Tim Patrick is really more of a, hey, we're betting on at least one wide receiver going down or getting moved. But structurally, the team is strong. We have exposure to Seattle. We have exposure to Detroit. And I think where we got DK Metcalf kind of is like it's a really, really, really fine value. So I'm pleased with this team. This team, you can do a lot worse out of the 8-hole than we did.
1,000%. We didn't take Bijan Robinson, so I'm happy.
A question from the chat, not related to your guys' team, but I did want to get to it. They were asking here. Let me just make sure I get the phrasing right. They were asking, in your guys' opinion, which Panthers receiver do you prefer? Like, I didn't want to get to that question. I told them I would.
I don't like any of them that much. I think if you're going to bet on one, like the mystery of Jonathan Mingo, if I needed points out of the first 3-4 weeks of the season, I actually think it's going to be Thielen who's going to get an opportunity early on. But I'm not really betting on that receiving core. It's a dart throw right now. I think there's better bets to be made than trying to search for a Carolina wide receiver.
I'll take my dart throws with Mingo, and if I have to get really, really crazy, it'd be Marshall. Just hoping that somehow he clicks with, he was a popular, steamed up a couple of years ago. Last year, kind of fell off the map, but there's still talent there. DJ Chark, Adam Thielen are not the best household names when it comes to 1 and 2 receivers. So to me, it's Mingo and then Marshall.
Yeah, betting young is probably the way to go. I think it's the way I've been handling it is there's usually you don't get a whole lot of guys elevated by a rookie. So I think kind of the way to go is if you're going to bet on Bryce Young, be kind of willing to grab Miles Sanders or Chuba Hubbard and kind of have the running back quarterback combination. I think is not a bad bet. But I'm not trying to I think what people get in the problem with, especially in this kind of tournament, Terp, is you overstack and you over-correlate. So, if you want to take Bryce Young and then draft 3 wide receivers with him, you can do it all day long. But your team
doesn't mean it's going to work out.
Dead ticket.
Yeah, the team's dead if they're an average Joe offense, like a Texans last year, when all the people were like, Davis Mills is cheap. Let me stack all these guys with Davis Mills, and Davis Mills stunk. Yeah. So, it kind of just ruined 3 roster spots on your team that in a 20-round build or an 18-round build, whatever it is, it just puts you in a big hurdle.
And for what really matters, my 15-year-old brother texted me and said, Terp's team is really good. I like it. So if that's not a reassuring vote of confidence that the 15-year-old budding fantasy player, he's a fan. So I appreciate you guys both for coming on, giving us your pick-by-pick analysis. Really hell of a team. Love the way you guys built at the quarterback position after kind of punting it, which is the first time I think we've seen this specific type of build in a while on our live show. We'll be back. Pros v. Joes, Theo, which I believe
the defending champ.
Yeah, we're the defending champs.
I'm the one that called it too.
You did. That was
day one draft. I said the GOAT District's taking it down. They didn't let me down.
Well, I'm hopping in the GOAT District right after I get off with you guys. Jordan McNamara. You can once these guys sign off, go flip over to Player Profiler and you can check me with Jordan McNamara, JD, and Dan. And then make sure tune in to First Class Fantasy. Billy Muzio and I. We're dropping shows every Thursday, and then I'm dropping press coverage, which is my solo pod. We have Rich Rebar on Friday, so tune into Player Profiler, and we have a wonderful partnership with the FFPC, and we're talking a lot of FFPC ADP, talking a lot of FFPC draft strategy. It's going great. I can't wait to see you guys in Vegas.
See you soon, brother.
Theo, thank you for drafting with us. Go check out all his content. Follow him at the OG Fantasy on Twitter. As we said, Terp, we'll be back. One of us will be on, I'm sure. Sunday's coverage, Pros v. Joes kicks off, and we'll be back with more live draft coverage. Super flexes in the works, dynasties in the works, and then main events are going to be coming before we know it. So a lot more live draft coverage coming from us. Thank you to all who were in the chat. Thank you to all who watched, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.